Welcome, everybody. I guess you did that, Bill?
Right, fixed.
Okay. Anyway, welcome to our 2025 B School. I guess starting here with the housekeeping. Of course, we'll have a lot of educational tables outside, so during the breaks, make sure you attend those where you can see about how to build some frames, install wax on your plastic frames, and then of course adding extra wax to plastic foundations. Make sure I go the right way here. Of course, feel free to ask any questions. If you would, after each speaker, they will give you an opportunity to ask questions. Rather than fielding them with just any question you might think of, please reserve that to the topic they had just finished talking about. A lot of times we'll get into a topic and then we get questions about the next topic and the next topic. So if you'll wait, and if we still don't get to your question or hit the topic your question is about, we'll take care of that before you leave here today. We'll make sure everybody has their questions answered. And of course, you want to talk with the speaker, especially at lunch. The speakers will, rather than gather together, try to set at some separate tables. And that way you can sit down with them and converse and find out more about these amazing little bugs we keep in these little white boxes. They're just fantastic. They really are. Especially when you get into the biology, you'll see how wonderful they are. I guess, am I going the wrong way? I guess I was. So please turn off your cell phones if you will, so we don't get interrupted with that. Facilities, did they talk about that? Bathrooms, ladies are on this side, men's are on this side, so feel free to go to those. We have plenty of snacks right now if you want to get some snacks. And of course, during lunch, we will provide you a sandwich lunch with potato chips and drink, and also some little cookies and brownies for dessert. And of course, our speakers, they're all hobbyist beekeepers from our bee club. We do work with those that are certified beekeepers. You will be able to do that as well. Within Georgia, they have a certification through 4 different levels. You have to keep bees at least for 1 year before you can go testing for the first level, which is a University of Georgia certified beekeeper. And that's something nice to do. And then you can go up 3 levels all the way up to a master craftsman. We only have, I think, maybe 3 of those in the state of Georgia, not maybe 4. And one of our resident master beekeepers, Rodney over there, that's actually the 3rd level up. There's only 1 more from that, and that's the master craftsman. So anyway, we're happy to have Rodney in our club. All right, that's about all of that. You can read that just well. I don't have to read that off. We do have mentors with our club. When you leave here, we hope we can sign you with a mentor. We're in the midst of getting our mentor list updated. What we try to do is base that on the school system here in Forsyth County. So we will probably ask you what school you are living near, and then we have our mentors positioned throughout the district in those different areas, so we can find one that's hopefully close to you. Mentors are there for you if you have questions by the phone, or if you just want to, you're really puzzled and don't know what's going out, we'll come out and take a look into your hive. We do not want to do inspections for you, but we'll lead you through the inspection so you learn what to do. And of course in March, April, I think, when do we have that set up for? March?
April.
Is it April? Okay, anyway, that's in our calendar. You'll be able to look at that. But anyway, our April date, what we will do will be our 2nd day of bee school, and we'll go out in the bee yard. We'll actually take you into the hive and show you what you've learned today, take a look at it, explain everything to you, and we'll show you how to install nukes if you're getting your bees this year and getting a package or a nuke. Of course, as I said, we'll have you in the hive there, and that's what we will do. We actually let you go through the hive, and we stand there and watch and instruct. In May, we do have a queen rearing class. We have it here in this building again, not in this room, but we move a little bit further back in the complex. But with our queen rearing school, we will teach you how to graft queens and raise them. And actually, if you sign up for this, you'll have the opportunity to graft yourself, and you can actually have an opportunity to go home with 4 new queens if your grafting is successful. And normally, most people get 2 to 4 at least with their grafting practice. The grafting part is limited. I think we limit that to 20, the first 20 that sign up. And then after that, we will let additional people sign up, but not with the opportunity to graft. So if you're interested in doing that, make sure you get in early. And of course in July, what's that?
It's called queen grafting.
Queen rearing class. And it's also on our schedule, so if you'll go out to our website and also the newsletter, normally we'll have this in it as it's coming up, but that's a queen rearing class. But of course our disease and disorder class is normally in July. That again is out in the field, and it'll be at the same location where we have our second day bee school. What we will do then is get you updated on all the current practices for getting all the disease and disorders, taking care of varroa mites, which is one of our biggest problems right now. But we will get you up to date on all the current ways to do this and to keep your bees healthy so you can get them through the winter and go into a very happy, prosperous spring. Of course, we do have a library. It is located out there on one of the tables today. We brought all the books up. Within the library, you can check out a good number of books we have. The library also is going to have some extracting equipment that you can use. We have actually extractors, we have uncapping tanks, uncapping knives. We have refractometers, so you can tell how wet your honey is as you're extracting it. These are on a loan basis. Normally we like to have you bring it back within, say, 3 or 4 days, so you'll have to schedule that out. There is a deposit with that, and that if you bring the equipment back clean, you will get your full deposit back. But that's also available at our library. And of course, 2 magazines, and I think we have them here. If you're going to be a beekeeper, you should get American Bee Journal and Bee Culture. These are outstanding publications. They're not very expensive. I think they're around $25, $30 for a year's subscription. But those are the professors we have in our industry, along with some of the people that's been keeping these little bugs in white boxes for a long, long time, and they know what they're doing. And it's a great way to keep yourself updated on what's happening in the bee culture area. So be sure and think about that. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn this mic over. You've got one to the first speaker, and Ray is going to let you know about what is beekeeping.
Can you hear me okay? Good. No, just, you can leave it on. Which one's the clicker on that? This one. Good morning, my name is Ray Supple, and I am a beekeeper most of the time. Try to keep bees anyway. Been doing it since 2016. Back in 1998, I actually started before we had all the problems with some of the diseases that we have today, where we didn't have those. And anyway, we've worked around where we have the opportunity to where, I'll get this thing back up here, went to sleep. Where today we have some different managements that we can do to try and keep your bees healthy. So basically, the word beekeeping is an interest in honeybees. Okay. I took this out of this book right here. It's the first lesson. Actually, this is a good book. If you don't have one, this is a good book to go ahead and get started with. How many people have bees or don't have bees? How many people don't have bees in here right now? Okay, great. You're doing the best thing you can by getting educated first and then get your bees instead of going the other way around. So the very word beekeeping implies that the existence of a bee can be kept. Good luck, okay. As a beekeeper, you're going to try and keep 10 to 50,000 bees into a box, trying to keep them healthy, happy, and growing. It's up there, okay. And also, your job is to manage the bees and to learn what the bees are saying to you, okay? The bees are going to talk to you. When you go in and manage the hive, if you walk around and all of a sudden you hear noises that you don't think are normal, they're telling you either don't come in or there's a problem, okay? I mean, they're going to actually make a loud humming noise. So if you hear that noise when you go up there, you might want to make sure you're dressed out when you go in. Most of the time, you're not going to hear that, so that's a good thing. I like that first line. It says, the bees do all the work. I haven't really figured that one out yet because your job is to manage the bees. The bees are going to take and do their thing. So if you've got a good hive, you're going to have 50 to 60,000 bees in June or July in that hive, okay, which is great. If you go into the hive and you notice that it's weak, meaning that you don't have that number of bees, then you might want to take and talk to a mentor, okay? As far as providing a good home, as a beekeeper, you need to have a nice, healthy colony, and to have that, you're going to be putting them into a box, okay? And the Langstroth is the box that we use. Typically, it's going to be something like that one right over there. Other people use different types of hives. You'll see some different ones, but basically most beekeepers have that 10 or 8 frame hive. Some people go to the 8 frame because it's a little bit lighter to work as compared to the 10 frame, okay? It really doesn't matter either one as far as just using the 8 or 10 frame is whatever works for you. And I guess it works because it was patented in 1852, so I think that it's probably been around long enough that it's proved itself, okay? When you put your hive out, it's a good idea to take and face it in a southerly direction. One thing the bees use is they use the sun as a lot of their gauges as far as their GPS that they've built in to their hive, so they know where and when to come back, where to come back to on the hive. So by going in a southerly direction here, you pretty much catch the sun most of the day. You can go ahead and put it into a semi-shaded area, but it's better if you put it into a sunny area. The bees don't seem to mind getting hot. They don't like to get too cold, and they will generate enough heat inside that hive to keep that hive somewhere around 93, 92 degrees year-round. So it doesn't matter whether it's 0 or whether it's 102 outside, they're going to keep that temperature pretty much the same inside that hive. So managing bees is a task that requires time, requires money, and sweat equity. Okay, you should be inspecting your hives weekly. And I think the club pushes that it would be a good idea to have 2 hives, okay? This way, by having 2 hives, you can go ahead and have one to gauge against the other. So if you go into the hive and you've got one hive that's just busting out and you've got the other one that's kind of weak, then now's the time where you go, something definitely is not right, okay? You either have a weak queen or something like that. So it's important that if you start off with the 2 hives. It's a little more expensive to do that, but the upside to it is that if you have one hive, you have a problem. By the time you realize you have a problem, you won't have a hive, okay? It's going to be gone. So having the 2 hives The upside also is that if that one hive does a really good job, you can split off of that, and it gives you another set of bees to work with, either to build another hive or to go ahead and help that weak hive. One thing that I did come up with that, investing in proper equipment, a good bee stock, and knowing the treatments that you need when and where, okay? When to treat your bees. If you've got questions with that, we keep talking about the mentors. We keep talking about the club. Those are two great places to take and ask questions. The mentors, and they'll talk about this throughout the day, the mentors are set up kind of on the school zones that are around, okay, the high schools. So there's usually somebody pretty close to almost anybody that's in the club, and they're more than willing to come over and give you knowledge, share their knowledge. So it's important that you use the mentors when you have an issue, you think you have an issue, or if you just want to find out. I mean, I've done that in the past. Am I doing this right? Okay, if I've done a split, did I do that right? Okay, and they'll talk about that later. And I did talk about sweat equity. In the middle of summer, you'll understand that. I won't have to go into that too much more. This is something that I find kind of funny in a way. Okay, we ask you to start off small by going to 2 hives. Okay, next thing you know, oops, I got 4 hives. Oh, I got 6 hives, okay, because it's real easy to split off, and next thing you know. So you need to come up with a number of hives that are going to work for you, okay? It might be just 2, it might be 3. But the important thing is when you get 10 hives, it gets to be a lot of work. And believe me, you can ask people that have been around in keeping bees for a while. You start off with 2 and then you say, how did I get 4? So it doesn't take long that all of a sudden you realize I've got a lot of work in front of me, because working a hive is actually, it's a good time in the fact that it's interesting to see what the bees are doing, but it's a lot of work too. I mean, the supers during the middle of the honey season might weigh 70 to 80 pounds apiece, which is good because that's a lot of honey that you're going to be able to extract off of them. So just come up with a realistic number, whether it's 2, that would be a good idea, but I would suggest at least starting with 2, okay? There's 20,000 species of bees in the world. We have a small group that we have kind of in our area as far as that work well. The Italian bee is the one that almost all the beekeepers here use. And that Italian bee seems to tolerate the temperature well, seems to build up well in January. The hive will start building up in January. And the queen's getting ready for spring because she knows it's coming. And the Italian bees seem to be relatively docile. Doesn't mean they're not going to sting you, but the thing is they're relatively easy to work. I'm going to keep saying this multiple times, okay? If you learn your bees, you'll understand when to go in and when not to go in there. And it's important that you see that and be able to understand when those times are. Because there's times when you can go in there and you can just go in just maybe with a veil and a smoker and work the bees, and they're just fine. Next time you go in there and they're not happy, okay? And they're coming after you, and you just have to be aware of what they're saying to you. The term apis, A-P-I-S, it returns to, it's called bee-like, okay? The Italian bee is the Apis mellifera, okay? The mellifera means honey, so it's a bee-like honey. So basically, if you go into that book, it'll break down 4 or 5 different bees that we have in the area that you can raise. But basically, the Italian bee is the one that most honey producers like to use. You're going to hear more about that throughout the day, too. All right, we keep talking about libraries, learning. Okay, it's really important that you're doing the smart thing right now by getting educated before you have your bees, Because once you get your bees, then you'll be able to at least understand what's going on when you go into the hive. But this first lesson in beekeeping, it's this book here, and I think they've got some copies of it, that it really is probably the best book. It's written locally by one of the professors over at the University of Georgia. He's been to the club a couple of different times, and if you come to the club, we usually have a speaker every month that comes in and talks about some particular topic. Okay, he's been to the club a couple of times. We've had some other professors come over there from different universities that bring knowledge in, and Bob Benny is another one. They're just knowledgeable people that want to share that information with you. Okay, we talked about the magazines. If you're not in the club yet, join the club. Okay, that's going to be one of your best resources as far as the club that we have right now. The people that have been around for a long time, they want to give you information. They want to help you. So by getting with within the club, we meet on the fourth Thursday of the month, starting in January and then running until November. And there's a newsletter that comes out. If you're not on the list, if you join the club, you will be on the list as far as for that newsletter. But it will give you who the speaker's going to be and the topic. And it really is a good resource that we have for our particular club. The American Bee Culture, I think you'll see a couple of copies of that over there. And I found that this over here. These catalogs, and there's a bunch of catalogs over there, but if you look in the center part of this catalog, there's a lot of information. If you're questioning what kind of treatments that are available out, the catalogs go into in detail what the different types of treatments that you're going to use for mites and for different things that are in the hive. It's really, having 2 or 3 of these catalogs along with that book, you're going to get a lot of information that you need, okay? So if you look in the center part of the catalogs over there, you'll see that information we're talking about. And at the American Bee Journal, the Bee Culture are 2 other magazines that are nationwide, and there's a lot of information that comes out from things that are happening around the Southeast and in other areas also. So it really is a good way to take and learn. And you can, instead of getting a hard copy, you can actually get that digitally too if you want to do that. That's something that I've been doing. All right. And the club is going to have different, we talked about that a few minutes ago. We're going to have hive management. We're going to have diseases and disorders, okay? We actually have a class that will go out and meet out in the field. They'll talk about all the different classes that are, all the diseases that are out and some of the treatments that you can use. I keep talking about treatments because, one, you need to treat your bees, okay? If not, this mite that we have, we've got a little, this is the mite that we fight more than anything else, okay? If you can imagine a tick on a dog, that's basically what this does. It goes around from bee to bee and it passes viruses. The viruses will take and eventually get into your hive, and then if you don't treat, you're going to end up losing your bees, okay? So there's many different treatments that are out there, so it's important that you go ahead and learn what treatment works for you and go ahead and use that treatment. Okay, the goal of the beekeeper is to manage the bees, to make honey, and make a little money because you can sell the honey, okay? You got to keep them healthy. I keep talking about treating your bees. The treatment usually is in July, November, December, depending on what you're using. Some of those treatments are temperature sensitive, so it's important that you know which ones will be more effective during different times of the year. But just please treat your bees. If nothing else, we'll talk about this a little bit later on, but also what's important is you can go in and actually take about 300 or 400 bees off your hive. You can do and they'll talk about it, it's called a shake, okay, either with the alcohol and you can look at the number of mites that you have, and you will have mites, okay? You'll have them. It's just there. And then now you know how to treat, and then if you treat, then you do that check afterwards and make sure that it was effective. So it's real important that you do treat your bees. I know a lot of people don't like to use chemicals, but if you use them at the right time of the year, a lot of these chemicals, what we're talking about, are broccoli. I mean, it's a derivative off broccoli and off of a couple of, there's some natural elements that actually do work well out of these treatments. So just treat, do your mite checks, and you'll work out where the bees will be healthy for you. You're going to see that probably in July, okay? One, it's hot out. Number two, that's telling me that you got a lot of bees in the hive. That's a good thing. So what's important is now you want to watch and see what your bees are doing. Okay, when you see that, that's telling me right now that they're trying to keep that hive cool. It's really, in the middle of summer, you're going to see it's called bearding. If you see that, that's probably okay, it's fine, okay? Something you might want to think about doing is making a split on that hive, make more room. When you're doing your inspections and going in and checking the hive, you got to stay ahead of the queen. That queen's going to be laying between 1,500 and 2,000 eggs a day, and she needs room. Okay, if she doesn't have room, then we'll talk about that in some of the others about they leave. Half of them will get up and they'll take and leave. So it's important that you stay ahead of the queen. If you use the large brood box like that, you'll see a lot of people will use either a single or a double. And that gives the queen, we try and keep the queen down in there, okay? And that's going to give her plenty of room to lay. So by doing your inspections, you're gonna be able to go in and notice whether there's a lot of brood, there's not much brood, and they'll talk about that a little bit later on. But if I see that when I walk out there, I'm not going to panic. The thing is, I just need to think about, am I going to have to split some of those bees off to make more room in there? But it's a natural thing for the bees to come out and beard during the summertime to help cool that hive. I guess the one thing that's really, and I know you're going to hear this all day, and it's kind of like a broken record, educate yourself, okay? The more that you can learn about beekeeping, the more you're going to want to learn, really. That's the good part about it. Because no matter where you go in the world, if you go into a beehive, it's amazing how somehow the DNA has been just spread throughout all like the Italian bees for sure. You go anywhere, that hive is going to almost look exactly the same, okay? Depending on where the hives are, the honey might look a little bit different. It might be a little bit lighter, a little bit darker, but basically the bee does the same function wherever it is, whether it's in Ireland or whether it's in Europe or here, okay? So it's just, to me, it's important, or not important, it's just interesting when you go into that hive to see how that structure works inside that hive. And we'll talk about that. One of the other speakers will be talking about that today. But educate yourself, using the club as another source, your mentors as another source. It's just going to help you, on your journey to becoming a good beekeeper. It's just going to help you make it easier and more enjoyable. Okay. This classroom right here is just going to give you a basic understanding of what we're talking about when trying to keep bees. Okay. There's a second training day that's going to come, and it'll be outdoors. It'll be over at Bill's farm that he has, which is down not too far from Central High School. That day you're going to be able to go out and you're going to be able to get into the bees. They're going to let you work the bees during that time with a mentor standing there. So you'll actually get your hands into the bees, be able to understand what you're seeing, ask questions on what you are seeing if you don't understand that. But that class is really, it's kind of the finish that's putting the cherry on top of what you're learning today. Because now if you don't have bees, at least you get into them to understand what the bees are doing, okay? And I've been to multiple of those classes out there just watching, and You learn how to light the smoker, you learn how to do all the different functions that you're gonna have to do so that you're comfortable getting ready to do that when you get your own bees. If you go out to the class, you're gonna need to bring a jacket, your smoker, maybe a hive tool, and gloves if you're gonna work with the gloves. But the bee school takes some of the anxiety out of keeping bees, because, I mean, if I open up a box and I got 50,000 bees looking back at me, you can be a little anxious, okay? But if you feel comfortable going in there, the bees most of the time will just look back at you and just do their thing. They could really care less, okay? So the good part about this is that with your educational piece, you go into the bees, you know your bees, it really becomes interesting to learn all the different times and what's going on within that hive, the buildup, and then the honey flow stops, and all these different things. And for you to understand that and be able to feel comfortable with going into the bees. One of the favorite subjects, okay. It's a natural thing for a bee to sting when there's a problem in the hive. In other words, the only defense that bee has right now is a sting. And that stinger, once the bee does sting you, the bee's gonna die. So it's kind of a fatal idea that, okay, I need to protect the hive, and they'll do that. But if you get stung, and you will, okay, at some point during the time, if you feel comfortable wearing the jacket or the hat, and you're wearing the gloves and wearing long sleeves, a friend of mine, I keep telling him, somehow it hasn't grasped. He'll go out there and get in the hive, and he comes back and he's got 2 or 3 stings because he got short sleeves on. I said, why don't you go ahead and put long sleeves on? Yeah, but I just wanted to go in there and work on it. But sometimes you can go in there and they're just fine. Same thing with shorts, okay? Then during the middle of summer, it's hot to get in the suit or get into the jacket and whatever, long pants. But if you feel comfortable going into the hive, it's going to be a lot easier, because the bees don't seem to get as far as agitated as much. Where you go in there and you're anxious and you're moving around and you're doing things that are going to agitate the bees, by you knowing what to do, you got a less chance of actually getting stung. Okay. You're going to go out there sometimes and your hive, and you're going to have bees just flying all over during the middle part of summer when they're really out, going out and doing and trying to bring honey and nectar back to the hive. You're going to go out there and you're going to see, especially if you got a couple of bees hives, you're going to see a bunch of bees just flying around. One suggestion I would make is that if you're going to go work the hive, don't work it from the front, okay? Because that's where the entrance is. If I'm going to work the hive, I'm going to work it from the back. So I'm going to come up to the back of the box. You can do everything you need to do, but why do I need to add myself right into the middle of that? Because they're flying in and out. Again, I'm just in their way. So if you go in there and you hear, I keep talking about this, they're talking to you. If you hear a loud whirling noise, there's 2 things happening. One is the bees are deciding that they need to take and leave, okay? They're gonna go off. The other thing is that the temperature might be lower, okay? There's just some reason that they're angry that day, they're not happy. So listen to what they're saying, because the bee volume will actually build up when you're standing next to them. Okay, in April, they're going to go a little bit more at the club on working your bees and what you need to do, but you'll find out what works for you, and that's really what's important. What works for me may not work for you, okay? But once you get into the hives and you start seeing what they're doing, if you need to, call a mentor. You're gonna educate yourself to know, okay, that's the way I need to take and do it, okay? We talk a lot about stinging. The biggest thing is some people are very allergic to stings, okay? You're gonna find out, I've had multiple stings. They'd love to catch me right here, and then my neck will swell up. But I've never had any issues with breathing or things like that. You're gonna swell up. Most people are gonna swell up except for Bill Dunn. He doesn't seem to swell up or bother him at all. He'll be out there just like he's wherever, he's not here. But he goes out there in a t-shirt, works the bees, and it's just perfectly fine. Other people go out in a full suit, and that's fine too, whatever works for you. But the big thing is just knowing that the honeybee is going to protect that hive. So you need to be prepared that if you do get stung, kind of watch and see what happens. There's some different treatments that you can do. Some of them work, some of them don't, right? So if you do get stung and you start feeling your throat closing up, which is, I mean, it's a poison that they've injected into you, okay? It's real important that you kind of watch that and let somebody else know around that you've been stung, just in case you do need medical. And it could be in a rare occasion that you may have issues where you're allergic to the bees, okay? And that doesn't mean you can't have bees. The thing is, you may have to suit up a little bit differently than you would if you didn't have the what you feel is an allergic reaction. I've been asked, I do a lot of talks at schools and things like that, and they always ask, why do you have, why do you wear a white bee suit? That's why right there, because if I go in there wearing dark clothes, what do the bees think is going on? Okay, it's not that I'm a beekeeper. They think that, okay, I'm coming in, I'm going to take your honey. So basically, that's why we wear the white bee suit. It seems not to bother the bees as much. They'll love to get into the hive. Okay, luckily we don't have much of that problem. The bottom line is that typically there are some other colors that I've seen out now. People that have different bee suits that are like a beige and things like that. That's fine. But again, what works for you? I wouldn't suggest going in there in a really dark, unless you want to have an exciting day. Okay, it's going to be exciting.
Painfully exciting.
All right, when you get stung, and you're going to get localized pain, and it is going to bother you because it's going to swell. And typically, for some reason, they always like to get me here and here. It's going to stay inflamed for 2 or 3 days on me anyway. Some other people get stung a couple hours later, everything's fine. And you're going to have redness, and it'll be kind of hot to the touch. So again, that's a normal reaction, but it's if you protect yourself and know when to go into the bees, it's not going to be a real problem. Same thing as, well, it's kind of redundant, but and it's going to itch. There are some things you can put on the sting. The big thing is to go ahead and get the stinger out as quickly as you can. One of the biggest issues that I've seen is that, well, we've already talked about this. One of the biggest issues that I've seen is when you get stung, the natural reaction is to grab a hold of that stinger and pull it out, okay? If you look at that stinger, it's actually almost like a hypodermic needle. It's got a sac on the end of it, which has got the venom in there, and you've got this little hypodermic needle that's stuck in your hand, arm, or wherever it is. If you grab a hold of that, you just push the rest of that venom that was in there. And if you want to, you can stand there and look at this venom sac actually sits there and pulsates, okay? And it's trying to get all the venom out of that sac. If you take your fingernail or something, the hive tool, and you just kind of scrape it off, basically don't squeeze and pull it out, okay? That's just not a good thing to do. Some important times when you can go into the bees. I mean, these Italian bees are a relatively gentle bee, and you need to think about the times that you're going to go and actually work the bee. One, if the temperatures are below 50 degrees, the bees are trying to keep that hive at about 90 degrees. Okay, so the lower the temperature, if it gets cool, you cool off that inside of that hive real quick, it's not good for the bees. So the other thing would be if it's rainy or cloudy. Talk about a noisy day. If you walk up there and start going into the hive and it's raining out, they're gonna make noise and tell you probably don't come inside because the rain again will cool that hive off, and they don't wanna do that. Some bees are just gonna be aggressive, okay? Some queens, when they lay their bees, they're gonna be aggressive, okay? If there's ways that you can get around that, if you find that you have one of your hives that just seems to be overly aggressive, it's just the nature of that queen, you can actually requeen that hive at a point and try and bring that aggression down, and it will make a difference, okay? When you go into the hive, one of the things that you want to do is you want to be kind of slow, and as far as working the hive. If you open it up, you've got a smoker, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But if you go into the hive, you've got the smoker's going to kind of calm the bees down just a little bit. Actually, what it does is they think that there's possibly, I mean, they're out in the woods, they smell the smoke, they think there's a fire, they're going to take and come inside to the hive, and when you go in there, you may actually see them with their heads stuck in the comb, okay? And a lot of times what they're doing too is they're taking the honey because they think there's a problem, and they're gonna fly off with this honey to try and start the hive someplace else because I've got a forest fire. But bottom line, the smoke tends to calm them down, and you always want to take and smoke the hive down just a little bit before you go in. This is where, if you're not sure, a mentor, or when you go to the second bee school, they're going to give you an opportunity to show you how much that you need to do. There's many things you can put into the smoker as far as either pine straw, or you have like a cotton, it's the findings off of when they make cotton, all the seeds and things like that, that actually works pretty well. As far as just be calm when you're going in there, when you're working the bees, the more calm you are, the more calm the bees are going to be. If you're in there just bouncing and moving them around, you're going to agitate them. So it's just be calm when you're in there. And wear the proper PPE, okay? Whatever that, again, works for you, whether it's just a head veil, whether it's a full jacket, a full suit, if that's what you think you need, or, gloves. It's just important that whatever works for you, you need to take and wear that. Keep talking about this. Is where I was talking about where when you get ready to take that stinger out, if you look, you can see right up on top that little gland that's up on top is the one that's actually injecting the venom, because the bee is going to take and fly off. I think the next one, no, okay, that's a little bit farther down. I'm going to talk a little bit about PPE. PPE is just what you feel comfortable with when you work in the hive. You can go to a jacket like this, and obviously you can see that works a little bit because it's dirty. You've got something like this, if you're just going to go in there quickly, where it's just going to protect your face. The important thing is protecting your face, okay? Because just like with that bear, when that bear goes in there, I mean, he's going in, or she's going to go in there, and she's going to try and get all the honey out of there. Well, the bees are going to go after your face. Something that I have, because a lot of times during the summertime, I'll be out in the yard or something working, and I've decided I wanted to go into the bees. I just found a pair, it's just bee pants really is what they are, and I could slide them on. Again, I would just suggest if you go into the hive, just protect yourself, whatever you feel comfortable with and working. And there's multiple bee suits out there. You're going to find not only the full face type shield, it looks a little bit like a fencing mask, okay? A lot of people like that because it's easier to see when you're working. I think the only thing that I've noticed with that is that your face tends to get a little bit closer to the outside. And if the bees decide they're going to come up in that, you'll see them, they'll come up onto that veil. And you want to make sure when you're wearing your bee suit, okay, that everything's closed up. It's really important. I mean, I've had all of a sudden, and I'm sure everybody that's kept bees, that bee is not here, it's here, okay, because it found a way to get in there. What I would suggest doing is just walking away, and don't get excited, because the more excited you're going to excite that bee. Walk over, unzip your veil away from there, Open it up, that bee hopefully will fly off and everything is fine. 99% of the time, that's what's gonna happen. But just make sure when you have your bee jackets on or veil, that you seal it up around you, because if you don't, I guarantee you, any little hole that bees for some reason can find. And when they find that, they're gonna come visit you, so. If you like that, which looks like a fencing mask, it's actually a little bit easier to work with as far as, like I said, seeing. Just remember too that your face is a little bit closer to the screen, so it's just whatever works for you. Some people go with the full bee suit, okay? When I first started, that's actually what I was wearing, because they didn't really have a whole lot of jackets out at the time. Problem is, it's really hot. Okay, this other jacket is not too bad. It is ventilated, but it's still, in the middle of summer when it's 95 degrees out, you're gonna be cooking in the suit, okay? So just make sure whatever you are wearing out there, that you're comfortable enough to be able to work out there for a while, because you might be, if you've got a couple hives, it may take you 15, 20 minutes to go do what you need to do in that hive. We talk about gloves. A lot of the beekeepers that have been doing bees for a long time, they don't necessarily wear gloves, some do. Again, for my feeling a little bit more comfortable in there, I do wear gloves. There's multiple gloves out there, but you want a good leather glove. If you can find one that, especially now they're making, that's a good thing, the manufacturers are making gloves for women. It used to be that everybody had one size glove to work with. But if you find one, a lot of them have some good leather in them that are very easy to work with. If you feel comfortable wearing the gloves, wear them, because it's going to make it a whole lot better when you go into that hive, as far as if you're comfortable going in there. If you find that you don't need to wear gloves once you're going in, but wearing a suit or things like that, that's perfectly fine too, if that works for you. This one's, I thought was an interesting slide. If you notice on that glove, those are stings. Okay, that's where the bees were not happy that particular day. The good thing is that more than likely the bees didn't get through the glove, okay? But that's not unusual for them, you know, on a day where the bees are a little bit questionable, to have some stings in the glove. That's perfectly fine, it's better than in your hand. So, you know, just working the bees can excite them a little bit, but basically, what you feel comfortable with is what you need to work with. Probably one of the most important tools that you're going to have out in the field is going to be a smoker. Okay, the smoker needs to last the whole time you're working with the bees. I guarantee you, anybody's kept bees in here, you've been out there, you're working, all of a sudden, whatever you put in there is gone out. And that's about the time that the bees decide that they really needed to be smoked. And so make sure that your smoker is loaded either with pine straw, or you have some spare fuel to put in there. And keep the smoker where it is loaded at all times while you're out there. A lot of people carry like a 5-gallon bucket when they go out there to work in the hive. They put their bucket, the hive tool, and a brush and all that in the bucket. Also have some dry pine straw in there. It's a good idea to have that there, because if you need to and stuff some more in there just to keep working in the hive, it's better than going to try and find something to put in there. But you'll find many times you're out there working and all of a sudden, I have no more smoke, okay? You want a good, cool, what they call a good, cool smoke when you're in there. You don't want flame coming out, and it will, when you're puffing it, you'll get some flame out of there. But by using pine straw, the smoke that's going in there is what they call a cool smoke. So it's not going to take and melt things inside the hive and burn up the bees. So it does work pretty well. There's one more thing before I go to questions, as far as something that I find that's important, is keeping some kind of a journal, okay? When you go into that hive, every time you go in there, I'll go ahead and, okay, I'll write down in the book, oh, I treated today, and I just numbered my hives like 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I know if I go in there and treat and what I treated with and when, then I know when I did that is going, did I treat yet? Okay, well, I know that I did. I'll also note whether I have, the hive is doing well. I've got brood. I'll note just some things in there so that it just kind of jogs my mind when I go back and did I do this or not do this? Did I treat for the mites? What did I treat? What did I treat with? So just keeping a journal like that, it just makes it good, because if a mentor comes over, you can kind of just break the book out and say, here's what I've done, and the mentor will go ahead and be able to maybe help you a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up some questions, and feel free to ask. If I can't answer it, I got somebody that's in the room that can. We've got a microphone here so that everybody can hear. So hopefully that's answered a little bit about keeping, at least getting started in bees. Any questions?
Got one over here.
Gotta be easy, it's early.
Yeah, I just had a question. Is there a best time of day to be visiting your hives?
Yes, that's a good question. And they'll probably talk about that a little bit more too, but the best time of the day usually is gonna be not first thing in the morning, but maybe like before lunch, before it gets really hot. Okay, mainly for you, okay, because you go in there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when it's 95 degrees out. The bees don't really care, okay, but you will. So looking at the temperature and things like that, as far as outside, whatever works, because if you go in first thing in the morning when it's 20 degrees out, it's going to be a problem. You won't go into the hive. So just whatever works for you as far as the best time to go in. But usually be around lunchtime or so.
Hi, I've got a few questions.
Sure.
Okay,
There you go.
so we're thinking of getting two boxes.
Mhm.
Is it best to put them beside each other
Yep,
or
yep.
apart from each other?
No, I would put them within maybe a foot or two of each other. You can do that certainly fine. I mean, that queen is going to put off a pheromone that's in that particular hive, and the bees know, oh, I need to come to that hive. Makes it easier for you also to be able to work. Just leave enough room to take and be able to work around the hives. Okay.
So there'll be a queen in each box?
Yes, you'll have one queen in each box. You're going to have 50,000 workers and maybe 2,000 or 3,000 drone males that are going to be in that hive in the peak.
Okay, all right, and then what is the best way to check for mites? Because
Okay.
the bees are little, and I'm thinking, even with my glasses.
You won't see them, okay.
Yeah,
We're going to talk about that later, but I just
Okay.
thought, the thing is, there's one tool